Okay, welcome back. I think most of the faces I saw yesterday, you both have been yesterday as well there? No? Okay, so then a few slides are only for you. Yesterday it was a conference, a kind of monologue. Today we want to work together. Julia said it already, this is a workshop. That means you also need to work, unfortunately. So you work, I shop. No. So it's about learning analytics, instructional design. I have a few slides. Actually, when you look at learning analytics, so that's my thesis. I already do analytics since 2006, you can say, before, like you guys also do. And I applied it for different domains. I talked about this yesterday, so that was my thesis. I think I will not repeat that now because I really want to work with you guys. One hint, there's a new MIT study. I don't know if you saw that already. Algorithm can predict the human behavior better than humans. So this is where we work towards. So it's a new MIT study that it will be published soon, and they used an educational data set where actually they make the prediction engine that found the indicators on its own, and they tested it in different data competitions. And their engine was always in the top 3 and found all the features that are needed to predict dropout on its own. What's pretty amazing in an American setup. Not sure if, well, it's a new thing, what's out there. I'm not sure if that's really the true and if that will be the solution. So what I wanted to say about learning analytics is a lot of things have been done about technology in learning analytics because a lot of technology has been done actually. And when you look at these learning analytics framework that we use to work towards, so we work for stakeholders, the objectives are reflection and prediction. The data is protected data or it's open data that you combine, and then you have these different technologies like educational data mining, recommender systems, statistical analysis. You have ethical and privacy constraints, and you have competences at the side of the student and at the side of the teachers that are needed for applying. But you don't see any learning here, yeah. So and what is a very important aspect is there's a lot of things said about the stakeholders, the objectives, the technologies you can apply, but there are very few papers actually about learning analytics-driven teaching or learning. So having this in the middle and then pedagogical behavior that goes into the analytics, and then the pedagogical consequences, the actually interventions you want to do. We had one study, an expert study in the Netherlands with experts from the educational field, so what learning analytics could do. And within this graph, so they rated the effect of learning analytics on things in the educational system. So what learning analytics can influence successfully in the educational system. And then they rated it on importance, and they rated it on feasibility. Yeah. So how important is it that it's something changed by learning analytics? And how feasible it is that this will also be addressed, or maybe it's not feasible, we cannot find it. And what you see that teacher empowerment, so empowering the teacher, has been rated as most important, but also very feasible to reach that with learning analytics. Personalization, for instance, is also very important, but many experts have doubts about if this is really feasible. And interesting was that student empowerment has been seen 2 years ago as less important, and also not that feasible as we found in that study, because they think the students don't have the competences to do this. Okay, within the LACE project, what we do, we have there an evidence hub. there's an evidence hub where we publish the evidence of a year, of the month. We analyze papers and put it to the evidence hub. You can find a map of evidences for different propositions. So learning analytics improve learning outcomes. And then you can press on that and look for papers that have a positive results for improving certain things. So you can find really evidences in the hard sense with trialed experiments and so on within the evidence hub. Actually, we only found positive evidence because people always report about positive outcomes in the articles, what is kind of pity. And at the LUC, we will have the first workshop on failure so that people can also talk about their failures. That's one of the results. But I want to pick 3 examples from the evidence hub as educational interventions that are done with learning analytics. So there's one very famous one, the evidence 1, the early warning system from Signals, where they have just a kind of lights system. If a student is good, if a student is in another state or not, and then you have to call them, and they use demographic information and progress of the student for this. This evidence, however, is a bit I don't know, there's a debate if this is really accurate research. And if the facts they reported here, for instance, that this is the people with core signals that keep on studying, and that's the people without core signals, and they found that the people supported with core signals always stay longer, and it works against dropout and so on. But there are some criticism about this analysis they need to react on, so I put this here. Some other interventions, educational interventions, a learning analytics dashboard, like Eric Deval is doing a lot of research on dashboards. You could also think about this as an educational intervention, because you have your traditional teaching, then you have the intervention, the dashboard, to make people more aware, the teachers or the students, and then you look how the dashboard affects something. So that could also be an educational intervention used by teachers or other people to improve something. Maybe in 10 years' time, nobody will consider that as an intervention anymore because the dashboards are all there and they are part of our equipment, so then it's not that innovative anymore. And then another example for an evidence would then be recommender systems. So that's a recent publication from April where they have an online academic support environment and where they report. So they give to low performing for students at risk a recommender system that suggests them what to do next, what books to study. And again, they found that the OASIS system had a significant effect on people having less dropout. Yeah? So that's still a bit technology applied, and it has better outcomes for the educational system. And then looking for where is really an instructional design, where is an educational method that use now learning analytics to do the design in a different way. And actually, you don't find something about that. It's something that needs to be written. And we have so many approaches. It could be problem-based learning. It could be standard instructional design and other things. One thing that it's from Alicia Weiss, one paper about designing pedagogical interventions to support student use of learning analytics, and she came up with this model. This model consists of 4 principles and 3, what does she call it? 3 processes. So what she says is there's an integration, so the learning analytics need to be fully implemented in the instructional design, so that's that thing. Then it should have a reference frame for students to compare their performance, so that's the next onion thingy, and also a dialogue about interpretation of learning analytics to improve own objectives, so that you have a reference. I personally, compared to you guys, have this and this performance, but also a dialogue how I should understand this data, what kind of data points are used for this. And she is strongly going from an agency perspective Agency is kind of the self-reflected learner that becomes aware of their own process and is able to steer the process and to improve the learning. So that's really her things that the students should learn about that. So that's the 4 principles she's applying to her education. And then there are 3 processes. The first one is grounding. That's then the process here. So awareness of the learning objectives and the needed activities, so that all are really aware what is the objectives, what is the expectations of me, and what I need to do to have a good progress. Then goal setting, support for challenging aims, so that the tutors are really giving challenging aims, but also support them to reach these objectives. And then reflection of the learning analytics feedback and adjustment to the goals. So that's actually the only model so far out there for instructional design and how to apply learning analytics. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I find it interesting, but it does not really, I find it difficult to apply that to Open University. So I don't know, I expect something else to use. This slide was kind of in between thingy, but what you find then is that almost all didactical interventions focus on students at risk. So all learning analytics didactical interventions look at students at risk. What is actually, we could do much more. I mean, dropout is the main pain thing. We want to keep them studying, but we could do more. And interventions do not always improve situations. There are 2 articles where people told them, listen, you're in danger of a dropout or something, and the reaction of the student was they stopped immediately. So instead of going further, even the intervention can have negative effects or effects you don't want in fact. You want that they reconsider, adjust something, take another course, but they stopped studying at all. So that's also something that needs to be monitored. And what I would like to do with you guys now is, this is the ADDIE model. ADDIE model is kind of, does anyone know ADDIE? Yeah, ADDIE is kind of the mother and most easy instructional design methods you can find, very frequently used. So it has the step analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. And so that would be one approach, that we work along the ADDIE model and think about how learning analytics will change ADDIE. Because when you think about learning analytics, the analysis, needs, requirements, tasks, participation, this could be informed by open data information from your students or post information taken into account here rather than a visionary, I don't know, or state-of-the-art stakeholder analysis. The design process, well, let's think about what that could be. Definitely the evaluation at the end will change, because what we can do with learning analytics, we could have in each step's evaluation processes, or like you do with the continuous assessment tests, that they already inform analytics. And maybe the evaluation process that is always at the end at the moment. You do a course and then you make a survey, and then with that survey you get kind of feedback and you adjust the course and you run it again. And actually learning analytics could make this process much faster by informing during the course on demand what's going on, what's going good, and improving it all the time over. So maybe this is totally removed and ADDIE is only ADDIE. Or something else, but I guess there will be a kind of post-analysis at the end. And evaluation parts come all over in between. So that would be one thing we could take, and then we think about what would be indicators we would need to know during giving the course to know if the course goes good or if it does not go that good. Another thing would be that we have a look at your CATs, these continuous assessment tests. What are CATs? An acronym. So that we look at your CATs and think about that, how to improve this. That would be really a WOC approach, that we take the WOC approach and do something there. Or again, we're taking ADDIE in a flowchart kind of thing, and then we what I would envision at the outcome of this workshop, maybe we split into groups or whatsoever, that we have at the end bubbles with indicators informing each of these processes, or making a bubble of this information I would like to have a better study experiences for our students. So that we take one of these approaches and we add then indicators to it, and maybe we can mix up with technical people and educational people and then work on those approaches. So question to you guys would be, do you have a specific educational approach you would like to investigate? So like problem-based learning, instructional design for CID. Should we take EDDI, or does part of you want to work with EDDI and the others go with the continuous assessment approach? And we try to make a map where indicators of learning analytics could support your didactical approach. Is that somehow clear?
Side of the table.
Or maybe there are questions we need to solve first. Yes.
It's an open question.
No,
You don't
yeah.
have to say one.
Yeah, so we could decide we all work together on EDDI, for instance, but maybe that's very artificial to what WOC is doing. So we could also say, you could say, well, I give a course on biological stuff, and then I follow a problem-based approach. Then we look at your process, roll it out, and think about what would be indicators to inform your course and make it a learning analytics supported course.
We are now this
Role playing, yeah, okay,
online role playing.
yeah. Could be would be very specific thing. Not many people apply that, but could be something, yeah. Yeah. Maybe EDDI is then a good victim to work with, because it's very general. You can take parts of EDDI and put it to role-based learning or whatever, and we just roll it out on the table with a paper, paint the EDDI thing, and then we make bubbles of what kind of information you would like to have, but also what information could be provided to design a course like this. And let's see what comes out of that at the end. I mean, what we now do is nobody did before, right? As I said, there are no papers about proper learning analytics supported instructional design or something. And we could make anything out of that later on. So that's kind of pioneering work. So then I would suggest we just put a paper in the middle and work together.
Yeah. So that's.
I mean, that's also what I really get excited about these continuous assessment tests is one of the big promises of learning analytics is that you get away from a summative assessment to a formative assessment process where you monitor a process and say, yeah, okay, you got it, yeah? But as I see your continuous assessment tests, it's kind of mini summative assessments. It's not really formative assessment, right? So that would be also one thing, if we take the process, that we think about how could learning analytics make a formative assessment process out of it, what could solve some of these that they did not have time to do something at a certain point.
Yeah, and it's not just a question.
So we have 1 hour. Maybe take the other EDDI. Should we do something like, we have 1 hour to do this. Let's say we do 50 minutes, so 25 minutes for the EDDI and 25 minutes for the formative assessment thing.
Whatever you want, whatever you think is more interesting.
Okay, so then let's go for the cats thing, yeah? But then you have to help me a little bit with painting, basically. And actually, the continuous assessment process is an assessment process. It's not an instructional design, right? It's one element of a design.
Yes.
Yes?
Exactly.
Okay, how we do that? Let's try with that one. So we have a kind, maybe I paint it here, the instructional. So, and here's the end of the course, yeah? And then there are 4 to, how many assessments?
Let's say 3.
Okay, but I think 3
is fine.
it will, so 3 and n, huh? It could be anything.
But
Yeah, because,
personal idea.
but that is because it's like
Yeah.
you have like an assessment every time you interact with a student.
Yeah.
Yeah, or automatic one, but, well, it's just another scenario in which sometimes I think about it. But
Yeah.
No, but
I
the
don't-
idea is, in the past, if you remember, we had
Yeah.
nothing like this, and we had a final
yes,
exam
yes,
here.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And this is the model that we didn't want, so.
The
we just-
distance model.
Exactly, the
like
Yeah.
traditional.
Yes,
This is the model we
So-
do, huh?
traditional.
We need in some way some instruments in order to assess during the course.
Imagine that you are a teacher and you are designing a new subject, and then you need to specify, well, my subject is about, I don't know, anthropology, and we are going to use the debate a lot and whatever, etc., etc. And the question is, how many packs or tests, and when, or and what kind of pack do I need to set up my subject? And
So-
that would be, I mean, I don't mean creating a tool for answer that question, but now we are doing it using our expertise. No.
Yeah, okay, let's collect what kind of assessment, because what I understand, somebody could send in a text here, but somebody could also do a multiple choice thing. It could be, so maybe we should capture first, what are the options here?
So we call it
Assignment.
evaluation activities.
Evaluation activities, and they, okay,
Yeah.
kind of mature over time, so they become more complex, or is it, this is just, is one like two, it just, it doesn't really make a difference.
Prevent you from passing the subject.
Okay,
So,
let's, I think what we need is so I try to understand it. I think what we need is an inventory of assessment approaches. What kind of, yeah, so, and what I got now, I think it's, it doesn't matter. Oh, that's a white one.
No, this is.
No, then I take red, doesn't matter.
Up again.
So there is something like written text of some of them if they study English, for instance, right? And somebody needs to evaluate the text. So then we have these typical question 1, question 2, kind of on a scale where they need to say something about a subject, multiple choice tests. What else you guys do for assessment?
Mathematical exercises where you have
To a thread forum thing. Okay. Okay, good. What else? What kind of assessments you came along?
A video presentation of the project, for example.
Okay. So they send in a video?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we reported by Learning Analytics in a way that it's also acceptable for you. But first to do that, we need to think about what kind of assessment approaches you have. Huh? So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 something assessment approaches. Yes.
I mean, what the learner
Eventually, will
finally.
be one of these kinds.
Yeah. Okay. The problem base could also be that they work in a wiki and work out something. I mean, that's more, yeah. Okay. But I think we need to make a difference between individual and collaborative assessments when I look at that, because in a collaborative you also want to know which student contributed what, and not that one student did everything, right?
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, exactly. This would also be now my next approach. I would say from the infrastructure that is in place, what could it tell you about these processes? And maybe one of these information that you provide here would help you to skip some of the assessments, or see, okay, it's going fine, we can accept it like it is. So for instance, I think in the collaborative approach, and actually I also have some slides about that, because we have also a project with a collaborative approach where we collect the evidence of people. So there is a spider diagram, so that looks like this. All right, I'm not totally sure you can scale it up, and here is a certain competence, and here is a competence, and here is a competence, and here, and here, and here, and here. And what we do then, we have all the students that I mentioned here, A, B, C, and these students, so what they do with the X API, we track what they are doing, and then we have a group. Wait, no, this is the group thing then. Maybe the group has a performance like this, somehow like this, for the certain competences. And we can also see then for each student what they contributed to it. For instance, this student didn't do anything here for 1. I don't know how to paint that, but they have been very active here. For 2, they have the main outcome comes from here. So we have a spider visualization from the Tinkercad APIs from each student then. And you see, what you see then is the average, what the group achieved. You get these collaborative items sent, and you can also go back and see at the activities in a spider diagram who did what actually, based on the X API and what they did in the learning environment. Although you need to have in mind, it's only from the online environment. It could be they go to Facebook and discuss there, but still you get an indication. No?
But just a question, how do you know that they have achieved this? Because they send you or they did an assignment that you marked, or because they tell you, or because you see what they are doing in the learning environment, or how?
Yes, exactly. So the course has different objectives. It's a course about energy saving, environmental science. Yeah. So they need to work, and it's an online course. It's a European course where different university students work together, and then they have assignments they have these assignments to do, and then we track the activities they do for those with the X API. And if a student does nothing for competence 2, what is with the X API marked, we see that in the environment. And then we can talk about this for the assessment.
But, I mean, do you meet the same problems, or?
They all have the same, yeah. Yeah, they all work, so they're mixed, so they come together, different universities, and then the teams are from different distance education universities, and they need to work together. They never see each other face to face, and then they need to work through the process. And it's a prototype. It's not like that we did it last year for the first time, and we do it this year again. But it would be one approach to show collaborative, to visualize how students contribute to a shared product, right? And to take that into account for the evaluation. So, and the competences could be exchanged. So if all this is addressed already in point 1, then yeah, you need a different representation of the visualization. Huh? This is just for this course, we agreed on this structure. I learned yesterday from Julia perfectionism is
Perfection is the enemy of the good.
The enemy of the good. So let's try to go easy. Let's do the simple things. Yeah, let's look for the low-hanging fruits. What the English also say. So and then I would say let's take the forum, because here we can do something with activities. Yeah. So there is an assessment where something needs to happen in a forum. What we could measure here with the with data that's collected, and you haven't seen the presentation yesterday, so I just call it data now, yeah. But on and events, what we could have, we could collect from the students. For instance, how often they initialize a discussion, yeah. If they have a leading role here, so that they start a thread, yeah. Then. You could also look how often they are responding to a thread and how long these responses are just by counting the reply, the numbers. Yeah, we don't do text mining then. We just look how so amount of responses. Response. Oh, it's okay. Then we could also look how much of the items, how often they go there and read through the forum. This lurker concept, a lot of students just go there and read, but they are not active. So there's kind of reading could be considered. The whole, I mean, if you all would teach face-to-face with your students, we don't need all that shit, yeah? That would be the best in personalized learning. You go out there and talk to each student personally and give them personalized feedback would be the best to do. But it's quite costly, right? So we have to do something with a mean, and it's not ideal. So if you would go there, it would be ideal, but we cannot do that. So let's think about how you can treat how the 500 staff people can treat the 50,000 students in a mean, okay? And let's try not to be perfectionists, to be good, okay? So what you also could do, what would be then more, so that was pretty easy analytics. What you could do, you have certain expectations for the forum discussion, yeah? So for instance,
that some words appear, some concepts.
Yes.
Could
very good.
Some semantic analysis. Or
Yeah. Key concepts, would that be okay?
Yeah.
Key concepts, and that could be done by each learner. But you could also, when you have something like this, you can have a forum discussion where you want to have, where you are in the middle, you drive the discussion, and then you would get a picture like this. So if you would draw this, it would be you in the middle, and then you talk to your student, and most of the students are kind of connected to you driving the discussion, right? So kind of social network analysis, and maybe they also talk to each other, and here's another one that never talked to you, they just talk to those. You could make a picture of the discussion, how it is going. But maybe you also want to have a different approach where you initialize the discussion, and you have all the different students that discuss to each other. So they are kind of groups, they work together, they also exchange information. You could also see then students that become a kind of hub in the communication and connect topics from that. And you are actually just giving some information to it. So that could be a result you want to see. And there could be arguments to say that the students that connect discussion and aspects maybe should get a higher grade or should be acknowledged, or students that, well, you would also see that student that does not team up with the others and didn't do anything, what is an indication that the assessment has not worked nicely and you should contact him or you kick him out. So there would be another thing we could do here, provide a picture of the forum, and I just make it like a star now, just by, and you get also thicker lines. You get these in social network analysis, you get thicker lines for people that heavily discuss, and you get thicker lines for people that have a high communication outcome and so on. So you could also provide a picture of the forum discussion from there. Yeah?
Well,
Okay, that would be peer assessment.
Maybe that has
But
something to...
Absolutely.
Yes.
Let's start. So you could, yeah, sure. You get. I mean, you get kind of scale here of how many responses a student get, and so. But what this shows already, when we just use the forum assessment as an approach, I don't know how you do the assessment now. I guess you log into the forum and read through it, and you think, oh, holy shit, they didn't get anything.
But the teacher needs to go through the forum and spend a lot of time.
Exactly, and what you could get something like, you get a report, huh? You get a report, forum A, sorry Julia, need to. Yes. And then this forum A would have a picture of how the communication within the forum happened. It would have a list of all the students, well, N, and then the key concepts they contributed. It's kind of table of this with key concepts, just the things how many things they started, how many key concepts they used, and so on. And then from here, it could save you time that some of the students do very well, some of them do bad, and maybe you need to do only an intervention for the bad ones. I mean,
And
Sure. Another thing would also be that you have a kind of listener in a forum, a technical system that listens for what's going on, and it has a definition of keywords. And if certain keywords did not come up, it's like an agent that posts into the forum who actually considered this concept as important. Huh? And then to see if they pick it up, it could be an agent technology. I mean, that's connected to the key concept. That's all text mining approaches then. That could even stimulate that as well to get people discussing the right things. There's also studies about that. But there would be one idea how learning analytics could make your forum assessment become different than you do it right now. And I think what I saw from Francesc today, you are not far away from this to provide these reports. Tomorrow he will have it done. For now I would skip that because it makes the discussion very complex. And but you can do something. We have the timestamps of this. So this case could be addressed. You could also then think about if the responses are copied from a website using a plagiarism tool you probably have in place. And you also would gather here new information, for instance, which URLs the students are posting here for discussion. Maybe there's resources you didn't thought about, but they really like to learn about the topic. So it could also be content used, could also be reported, and maybe that's different to the content you provide for the course or for the task actually.
Yeah.
What I added here is time as an own thing you could also add to this record for the students. And what for us is also very interesting is study load versus study time. So a study load is what the experts at the moment say like this: you should invest into that course. And we actually, it's a pity, at OU it's still really the expert says, yeah, okay, this takes 10 hours. And we don't really have accurate measures how much time is invested. So you could then have a study load yardstick behind, comparing that to the time invested, maybe combined of reading, replying. Well, you could think about different things that matter here. So, but then we have a first learning analytics artifact that could innovate your forum assessment, I would say. You disagree?
Sorry?
No, I would say that is a very concrete
yes, I agree.
learning analytics solution that could be implemented in your design and innovating that.
Go outside.
Yeah. I mean, that's very, I mean, we need to investigate that again. As I said, there are some studies that show that interventions also didn't have the effects. So if you show them that they suck, they maybe so demotivated that kind of, damn.
Of course, again. Yes.
So you have to play with, and that's also one thing we had heavily debates here, and I still disagree actually with the conclusion, is I always wanted to show the average of the course and the own performance. But there are some people from CSCL, so Computer Supported Collaborative Learning, that say, no, every student should see within that course how the others perform as well. So that also it's kind of, you also see then a student that is kind of in the middle here and has done very minor, and the whole group knows that.
Yes.
I disagree with that still because I don't know, I think that it's kind of digital, it's like in the Middle Age, you know, where they put the kids into, where they put on a marketplace the people like this and you throw tomatoes on them. It's a digital version of this, but okay, well, we run the experiment now like this, okay. And the ethical board approved it, so what I'm saying, so.
No, but now students will know that they complain when they work in groups that somebody is not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And they anyway do it, and that would show it visually. Huh?
And there are courses I took in my 4 years in college.
Learning to ride the bicycle is painful, but it's great, right? So, and this is what learning is about. But I would also disagree. So I think actually for me, this is an improvement for the teacher already, to get a clue what's going on, and maybe decreasing, so there does not need to read through 100 threads. maybe also already the threads that are kind of high quality, that where a lot of text has been posted, could be filtered. Yeah? So it could reduce the load of the teacher. The next thing, I think what you could do, maybe, and that's one conclusion, if you would have a learning analytics tool like this, the instructional design would be, at the end of the course, or before the assessment too, all students need to post a summary of a certain text. And this text is mapped against a masterpiece where all the concepts are described with text mining and tells them how much is covered. Maybe you get a green light then for where all concepts are well described. And then you know this student passed it. They know what's going. An orange feedback that says, okay, there are only 3 concepts are mentioned, and some reds that are totally off topic.
That means.
So I think 2 things. I was thinking about if you define your assessment, also what you do with Eddie. When you design your activity, you directly design your assessment. And you could consider, okay, what do I expect? I expect that I use these 6 key concepts at the end in their text in an elaborated way. They should be proactive, that's important, I don't know, because it's about proactive citizenship or whatever. And you could have indicators from the learning analytics, but also from the subject that you define as this is what I need to achieve. Then some of these indicators could be ticked off from this report. And you could even think about, when you think about badges, so these open badges initiative or competences, that a list of 10 activities enables 1 badge or competence. And those activities could be in a forum that if you have a multiple choice, it's easy. You do 1, 2, 3, and if you have submitted all of them, you reached maybe a competence. In a forum, it's more difficult. It might be a collection of activities like have started 2 discussions, have replied to something, and study time went over this, badge achieved, and this competence seems to be addressed. It could be a system like this. And I still think you say you are not with text mining there, but the university is text-based. So there's no other way than having a text mining system at a certain point that can also compare text that is submitted by a student to a reference text. And maybe the reference text is a very outstanding student submission you got in the past, but there is some kind of accuracy matching to a text in similarity that gives an indication, okay, when we have this text mining tool, and we have the student A, and he did all these combination of things, and the text mining also tells me he's on 70% of the master text. I don't need to look into it because that is addressed. And I think that's something that's maybe not in the place, but it's also something we are facing. At a certain point, as a distance education is run pretty much on text, we need to have this text matching. And I think if there will be iterations. Once you did that and you worked with it, you also have ideas for next time. Maybe then we still need the evaluation at the end to, hey, if I have this information, actually, I need my assessment looks like this, and we have this indicators, and they can also be provided. And this is where then learning analytics and instructional design becomes a new thing. That is. I think it has a different quality than the instructional design that is once rolled out and there's a survey asking the students how they like it or something. But imagine this, you would then not have many summative assessments, you would really go into informative assessment process, and even if a student takes a break, he could re-enter and continue from here. While now he's kicked out, right?
Yes.
But, well,
It's very difficult.
I think, Julia, what you're asking for is actually, you cannot have an answer to this thing now, because you have to start with this. And once you have this, you can have a look which patterns and if we micro things or other things really work out. So I think the question is too far ahead at the
no, in
moment.
fact, now we could.
Combination of both would be good. Yes.
And I think it's also not, it was not the objective of this workshop, because what we now wanted to see is look what kind of assessments we have and what indicators could be used to improve this assessment. I think we addressed this here. what you're asking now for is the next level, actually. What can we learn from the past assessment and how we do the best course that the students go away? And I think I brought something I actually wanted to say, show in the beginning. What we are working on is a kind of, so the wheel of pedagogy, or it's in Dutch, no, it's in English actually. Oh, it's mixture. It's mixture of whatever. But that's kind of, that you get a kind of wheel of, and then how these approaches are really instantiated. And then at the end, we want to have indicators for all of these tools and approaches we have here. So to make really a kind of wheel, so like we did here, that would be then, the wiki would be Toetsen, is assessment, what is very small here, would be then the forum discussion, and then the list of indicators we mentioned here would stand here. And if you would get a picture of all the approaches that are applied in WOC, with the different pedagogical and which kind of indicators could be used, you get a kind of map of the things you could apply then. Well, that's something what we try, that's more a research exercise, but also to map that to the pedagogical approaches. No, that's true. You can, instructional design you can do again on micro, meso, macro, huh? How to improve it. And actually what I like, do you know about learning styles? And it's heavy debate that they don't exist, and some people are really pissed off when you mention them. But actually, maybe they come back because with the data science, I guess there is a kind of pattern of my learning style, because I prefer to watch videos in the evening and reading text in the morning.
Yeah, but that's
it could be a data-driven learning style thing coming back.
assessment. So.
But okay, still, if we would have here the other timeline of the other course with assessments here, still you could do with the data that is collected for an assessment type from the past, have an amount what that will take. And I mean, it's a calendar matching. There are 1,000 calendar matching tools out there with a load that is expected. And if the load is here with 1 week too high, you could tell that to the student to adapt or go for this course to summative. I mean, that.
In fact,